Welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Gray. The best thing about being a nurse and entrepreneur over the last 25 years are the relationships I've developed and the people I've met. As a legal nurse consultant, I wanted you to hear from those amazing people in the legal and healthcare communities. I wanted you to hear who they are and to celebrate them with me. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered. Let's dive into the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm really super excited to have my guest Jordan here today. This is a little bit different of an episode, and I think you guys will be really, really excited to hear from Jordan and to hear how I found Jordan and what he is all about. So thank you, Jordan, for being here. And we're going to get into where you're coming from, but I wanted to thank you for taking the time to share your story with my audience. So thanks.
Sure thing, Anna. I really appreciate you having me on the show, and I love to talk about this stuff. So I'm pumped to dig into it as well.
Awesome. All right, Jordan. So the share with my audience, I always start off this podcast with asking, where are you coming from? And it's usually where are you coming from in the States, but I'm going to say, where are you coming from currently in your office there?
So currently, I am recording this podcast with Anna in my office in Lisbon, Portugal. So I've lived here the past 4 years now, and I absolutely love it. It was never the plan. We moved here to start off the 2020 pandemic year. We were just visiting and then got stuck, didn't go back. Long story short, we just kind of fell in love with the place really fast. And then, all of a sudden it's been 4.5 years and I still can't believe it. I guess that's how things happen sometimes. But wow. Who knows what's going to happen in life, right?
Right. So originally when I had come across your profile, we'll get into that a little bit later. I saw that you were living in Lisbon, and I had just gotten back from a trip to Portugal.
Amazing.
And it was a trip that it was a cruise, but the priority was Portugal because I'm Portuguese. So it was a trip that I had wanted to take my mom on for all of these years, and we end up in Lisbon, and it just fell in love with Portugal. And so when I saw that, and obviously what you do and your content, and just, I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is, all things happen for a reason, but I loved Lisbon. So I could not, I was so excited that you would do this episode. So tell me, it's funny because the pandemic comes up, I think probably in every episode, but for a different reason, because we're nurses and we lived through that in that capacity. Tell me a little bit about what you were doing before the pandemic that landed you in Lisbon. I know you said you were traveling there. It was for vacation and then you ended up there? Is that what, right?
Yeah. So 2019 for me was kind of the year of just experimenting with different things, different jobs, traveling different places. I started 2019 just going to Thailand with my wife. Like basically we said, we want to do something crazy and travel, and like we want to live a little bit more. So like, where do you want to go? Like, let's go to the farthest place from where we were at the time, which was North Carolina. And we said, let's go to the farthest place. So we spent 2 months actually in Thailand. I had been working as an entrepreneur, like freelancer before, and she quit her job and found something right away. Kind of a miracle that she was able to do that. But we just started doing that and traveling different places that year. And then we said, wow, we really love this a lot. Okay, so like travel's amazing. We fell in love with it, all that stuff, like normal people, like when they travel, that happens. Right. And then we said, okay, well, let's go. We're going to be digital nomads now. We don't know where we're going to end up in 2021, like not even going to think that far. Let's do that. But we started that the beginning of 2020. So Lisbon was our first stop. And then we stayed here for 2 months, had a flight to the country of Georgia. That was going to be our next stop, and go a bunch of different places. Those flights were supposed to take off the weekend where it like tipped, basically where everything happened, middle of March 14th, 15th or whatever. Yep. And then, flights canceled. Yeah, exactly. And then we didn't know what we were going to do at that point. But we, in preparation for that, we had sold everything from home. We left our apartment, sold our car. Like
Wow.
we didn't have any of the stuff in the
Mm,
US that you kind of need to have a place. Like we would have had to go back and stay with family. So we naively said, like, okay, the pandemic's gonna blow over, right? Like it's gonna
right.
end. Like we'll be fine. We'll be able
Yep.
to pick up travel in like June.
Yeah.
But then we just kept staying in Portugal and kept falling in more in love with it and just said, we don't want to go anywhere else. Like this is the perfect place for us for right now. And then yeah, we got our like we did our all the visa and all those details, stuff that you're
Yeah.
supposed to do when you're in the US. We did it while we
Right.
were here because of pandemic rules.
Yeah.
You
Makes
could
sense.
basically they allowed you to break the rules during that time. So
Right.
yeah.
So you ended up there falling in love. And then were you doing, each of you doing the same thing you were doing before? You just kind of naturally still continued it, in the comforts of your apartment or wherever you were living. Did that change, or was it just carrying on as business?
Yeah, my wife's been doing the same thing since we started the whole thing in 2019. I've had different evolutions of what I
Mhm.
do. So I started what I do now. I do ghostwriting for business professionals who want a book, like just to put it simply.
Mhm.
I started that 3 years ago now. So in 2021, I had written books previously myself, and I
Okay.
had helped authors with their books. I mean, I've been doing this kind of stuff for like actually the past like decade now.
Yeah.
But I just said, hey, I actually love the book writing process the most. Like, let's dive into doing the ghostwriting and helping people out with that. And
Okay.
it was a very natural, like I'd already written, yeah, like I said, I'd already written books myself. I was kind of like familiar with the book marketing avenues
Yeah.
and all of those items. And
Yeah.
but I knew what I liked the most. It was the writing and editing piece. So that's what I do
Ah.
now.
Okay. All right. So then your book writing before, when you had said you had written books, what kind of books did you write? I mean, it's fascinating. Obviously, I have a bookcase
Yeah.
behind me that
Yes.
seems to come up in comments. So I love books. And so I would love to hear what kind of book, what got you into writing books and the type of books you were writing.
Yeah, so I mirror you with that. Like what started me with book writing is the fact that I'm a little bit obsessed with books in general.
Okay.
Like especially my life now is a little like I'm always reading a book or working on a book. It feels like that's all I do.
Okay.
But yeah, that really started with a love of reading. And then it just started with me thinking one day I was like, hey, I want to write a book. This was back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what that looks like. And I basically wrote two books in the health and fitness field
Okay. Yep.
because I was interested in it. I wasn't like an expert. I never wanted to be like a nutritionist or a fitness
Yeah.
professional or a coach or anything like that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to write a book, right? Like it was like, this is my dream. I'm
Uh-huh.
going to do it.
Uh-huh.
And then, yeah, I quickly realized that I didn't want to be like a coach. So then I pivoted. And most of what I write for myself now is like personal growth,
Mm-hmm.
self improvement
Mm-hmm.
type books that I put under my own name that they're my favorite to write and also read. So I think it's coming to that. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
love that. So you used writing in kind of developing where you wanted to land. Like you weren't afraid to put that out there in something that you wouldn't claim that you were an expert in. You just really wanted to write a book, which I think says a lot in the fact that you kind of had no fear. You knew that you wanted to do it. You figured it out and you wrote it and made it happen. And then by doing that, you pivoted into what you really wanted to do, what you enjoy. But if it weren't for doing that, I'm guessing if it weren't for doing that, those initial books, then being where you're at today may not have happened, or it may have gone in a different direction. So I love that. I love because I have a very similar story in the health and fitness business world.
hmm
I for years, so I've been a nurse for 27 years, and for about 10 years, I was a health and fitness coach, and I built a business on social media, and that's how I fell into kind of the personal development
okay,
space. It's like I think it's a natural fit between health and fitness and
yeah,
leaning into the personal development space, and
because
loved
they're
it
so
ever since
connected.
because they are so
Yeah,
connected. And 99% of these books on this bookshelf are personal development or
Yeah.
business related. So I too built a business that I was not an expert in, but it was something that I was living every day and I loved it and I loved every bit of it. And then life happens and you pivot and now I'm in a business that's totally unrelated to that, but I've used all of the skills that I learned in these books um to help me launch a business in a field that I've been in for 27 years, but in a completely different way. So,
Hmm.
not being afraid to step out and learn and apply and learn and apply. And then you end up, being in a place where you never would have thought. I mean, I never would have thought I'd be sitting here doing this podcast, let alone running a legal nurse business. So, I love that you started out in a different field and then found your love of writing and found your love of writing with purpose. Obviously, if you wouldn't be writing in that space, you really have to have a purpose because that's
Yeah.
your
Yep.
message is all around that. So, you started writing for other people, right? As a
Yep.
ghostwriter. Can you explain to my audience and myself
Yeah.
what a ghostwriter is? Because it's fascinating to me and I've heard it, but in your words, what is a ghostwriter?
So a ghostwriter for book writing specifically is someone that helps you tell your story, like in a very simple way to say it, like someone that helps you tell your story and gets your message across. So a book can be very powerful and is very powerful to use as a tool for your business. Just to have
Yeah.
a book for many reasons automatically says you're an expert in something. It says that you put the time in and effort in to create a book. And it's a long process, even when you have someone like me help you and with the actual writing process. Like I say that for my people,
Hmm.
I take care of the the difficulty of sitting down and writing all the time, but it
Yeah.
still comes from that person. Like there is still going to be
Ah,
some input there in time.
yeah.
And for me, like this, and this is why I like it so much, is that I am helping that person get their message across
Yeah.
in a way that doesn't take them multiple years to write a book. Like they can come to me, we can write a book in 6 months to a year, and
Yeah.
it takes a lot of their time away. But then there's a quality piece there too. Because of my history in writing books, I've made a lot of mistakes. So I've made a lot
Sure.
of mistakes in the writing. I've made a lot of mistakes in the book marketing end. And now I can write a book with a book marketing lens that says, okay, who are we talking to? Who's our target reader? Like all of those important questions we
Mm-hmm.
consider together, and then we write the book from the ground up towards that person, instead of
Hmm.
figuring out the whole thing as you go along, which I have done
Sure.
before. I've
Sure.
developed more of a process to be able to do that. So
Yeah, yeah. Now you've taken the hard work out, and made it doable for other people. And I can speak. Also, I think I messaged you a little bit about this, but for years people always said you need to write a book, about
yeah.
my whatever, my life, my story, all of those things. But the fear, I love reading books, but the fear of
Hmm.
writing books, I I am not a great writer, and I wrote a paragraph in a book around here.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
and not a paragraph, a chapter in a book. And I literally had to send it to one of my friends who is like the, grammar police. And I had to have her look through it and she just chopped that thing up and made it sound great. And I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, okay, maybe I shouldn't be writing a book. So I love that, someone like you exists because um obviously telling your story, putting your story out there is something that if you've already always had that calling, but also on the business side of it. And I know that in this community, in this legal nurse community, there are definitely nurses out there, legal nurses out there that have written books and that have they are, they're visible, people know about them,
Hmm.
they're seen. So I know the value in having a book, for your business. So I love the fact that you've done the hard work and you continue to do the dirty work for that
Hmm.
for your clients in building a book around their story. And I'm sure that you dig deep and have a plan, which for someone like me who is it's like, oh, it's a godsend. Maybe it is time to write
Yeah.
that book, you know? So I appreciate you sharing what a ghostwriter is because, I mean, I kind of had a thought, a feeling I knew, but I've never actually met one.
Yeah,
Um,
because I was going to say sharing your like, it's sharing your unique story can be super powerful and fun to do. But then
mhm,
you're also sharing your like with that story comes your unique like viewpoints and your angles and your opinions and the things you
mhm,
think about things. Like, you'll read some books and not to bash any books, but some books like are a regurgitation of a lot of what you read before. And it's like, no, I want more from the author. Like I want more from their
right.
specific story, but I also want to know what they think. And I think there is and I don't think this is related to what we're talking about, but I was just thinking about it. Like,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a
yeah,
big fear again that people have, like, oh, I'm not going to put out anything new. Like, well, I don't have anything new
yeah,
to say, or people are going to
right.
hate it. Like, as long as you're telling your unique story and
Yes,
angle and viewpoints and giving
yes,
something new, or
yes,
just like a new approach on something. Like, all right, here's what I think about like XYZ, but here's what
right,
I think about it, and here's where it could go in the future. Like, that's why people read books, right? They don't read books to just read something or just to learn something that they could go and Google. Like,
right,
it's a deeper
right.
uh, there's deeper meaning there that people get from reading your book. And then, yeah, if someone completes your book and reads like 50,000 words from you or whatever it is,
Yeah,
there's an instant connection there.
right.
That is like, it's very difficult to get that through anything else, I think. But I'm
Sure,
biased.
sure. No, I totally see that. You're right. And I we can go back to the say that personal development space, self-help. In the old days, we called it self-help.
Yeah, I
Um
still do sometimes.
I just aged myself. But we can go back and even for example, if you're watching this, my bookcase, and that it's full of those type of books, you could say that they all sound the same, but they're all uniquely different because of the author and the points of view from the
Yeah.
author. And I connect with, there are stories in particular books that I will regurgitate myself and share because I connected with that story. The message is probably what I heard in 50 of these books, but his particular story is what I connected with. And that's why there are so many books. So I love the fact that you shared that. It is really, everybody is unique, and I think that um we all have stories to tell and our points of view, and
Yeah.
everybody's unique. And so let's dive into that, as far as, storytelling. And you do a really great job storytelling on social media, obviously to build your brand and to
Hmm.
showcase your goods. You're a great writer. So
Thank
for
you.
those, you are, I mean, I every post I've read of yours is intriguing and interesting and easy to read and everything that you would want in a social media post, right? And obviously
Hmm.
you're building your brand and showing the fact that you're a great writer. So for those that are not building a writing business, would you say that storytelling is just as important and how you write is just as important if you're building a different type of business, let's say a legal nurse consulting business?
Yeah. So I think the myth there is that, I mean, and this is just what I think. Again, we were talking about what we think and sharing what we
Sure.
think, but like
Everybody has, yeah.
the the writing doesn't have to be good.
Mm,
The videos don't have to be like great. I think there's so much about like just social media that really is just sharing your raw self. So compare just for comparison. I know a lot of
right.
people do like they talk about AI stuff and AI writing. I've had this before where I've been asked to edit books that are entirely written by AI because I could tell very few grammatical
Mm,
errors, but
right.
no heart at all.
Ah,
And I've edited books that the the author didn't even use spell check,
yeah.
so much heart, but a mess. Like, I would
Ah,
so much rather take this any day. And I
mm,
think it's the same for social media. Like,
mm,
people want that shortcut of doing AI or whatever. They want their writing to be better. But if I'm going on social media and I see someone talking from their heart and sharing their story, I don't care if the writing is bad. I mean, people
right.
forgive that. I mean, in a book is different. You want the book to be more professional. Okay, whatever. But like
Yeah.
for a social media post, especially, it does not have to be anywhere near perfect because I think
Yeah.
people are going to respond to you and what you have to offer. So, but I know that
Right.
that fear is what stops a lot of people. Like, I can't do videos, or I can't record a podcast like Anna. Like, it's
Yeah.
too good. But I can't do, like, I can't even write what I'm feeling. And I think mostly it's not true, because it doesn't have to be
Perfect.
good. It just has to come from the heart. And that's what people are going
Yep.
to respond to anyway. And then
Mhm.
as you get started, like, you get better. Like with my first book, I was not a good writer at all. Like, at all.
Mhm.
I Again, like, we talk about mistakes and learning stuff as
Sure.
we go. I
Mhm.
wouldn't even like to read that book now, because I'm sure there would be multiple errors, and I'd say, "Wow, I can't believe I
Yeah.
did that."
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
still, people
Yeah.
liked it, and they responded to it, like, and yeah, I mean,
Totally,
yeah.
totally. Yeah, I mean, well, it's like anything, right? Practice makes perfect, or
Mhm.
practice makes close to better in our
Yeah,
own
I like that.
when we're looking at our old things. And I go back to looking at a video I did. There's one particular video I did in the very, very beginning of me running my very first business, and it was the most depressing sounding, horribly lit video. And I think, how the heck did I even put that up?
Yeah.
But the great thing, we're talking about putting your story out there on social media. The great thing about social media is that it does, I mean, it lives forever, because I can go back to that video and look at
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
But it also goes away,
yeah,
and that's where the practice comes in. And, you practice. And so you can always delete it. But, someone's not necessarily going to go back and look at your post that you wrote 28 months ago, right?
yeah,
But if you went back and looked at that post and saw your growth between those posts, you'd be like, okay, I've grown. But the best part about it is someone is not going to go back and go, oh, well, phew, you know, because that's the great thing about social media, is like you get bite-sized pieces of someone's story. So I love about it so much.
yeah,
And leading into that, I found you and met you on LinkedIn, and it's a social media platform that I've always had, but
yeah,
never really spent any time. I hear this in podcasts all the time. It's like we're talking about LinkedIn, because I'm
yeah.
fascinated by LinkedIn now, because I built my other businesses on other platforms and
Mhm.
just had a LinkedIn profile. And just like everybody else, it was a resume sharing place, and where I would
Yeah,
update my
yeah,
resume, and I would just collect people and never really paid attention to it. You know, I can't even remember how many times a year I would pop on there. Would like someone would send me a connection that I kind of remember their name.
yeah.
And I think that way it was that like that for most people. Well, then when I started going down the legal nurse consulting route, there were a lot of legal nurses that were successful on LinkedIn. And if you, I mean, lots of my guests on here have been successful on LinkedIn. So I really, the social media lover that I am, decided, yeah, okay, what is this LinkedIn? Why is it? What is different about this
Mhm.
than the other platforms years ago? And what I found was I came across profiles and stories like yourself, and the storytelling like yourself, and there are a lot in that in your community who I'm just like, oh, I found my people. I love this. I love this community.
Yeah,
Um that are great storytellers. And I thought, oh, wait a minute, it's social media. It's become social. And that's what I love about it. But I think that a lot of people still think of it as, the old ways. And
yeah.
how do we bridge that gap, and how do we be successful? How can we be successful on this social media platform that was like a resume sharing platform? How have you been successful in um like just taking that on?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because I think, definitely agree. There are a lot of people that don't fully understand it. They don't understand LinkedIn's potential. I certainly was one of those people. The
Mhm.
same way, I've had an account on there for whatever, the last 20 years, or however it's been
Right.
long, on probably since college, maybe, maybe a little
Mhm.
after. I'm not sure, but
Mhm.
I never used it. I would scroll my way there every once in a while for some posts about someone getting a new job or something. But for me, it was just like, people go there to find work, and they go there, and like, that's it. There's nobody like
Yeah.
posting. There's no one, like, there's no social in that. But I
Yeah.
mean, I was very happy to be wrong. So I started posting on there regularly last November. So November of 2023. I've been posting every
Okay.
day during the week
Hmm.
and didn't know what to expect, you know? But
Yeah.
the fact that I found a community that I do feel like is a real community,
Yeah.
never would have said that before. And
Hmm.
I did that through just experimenting with it and posting. I can't even tell you exactly why I started. I didn't have someone say, "Hey, Jordan, like LinkedIn's amazing." I think it's just like
Mm.
I had the thought that, hey, maybe there's some people that could use some writing services on there. Maybe this is
Sure.
a place for me to connect with people. And I
Hmm.
have been able to do that. I've been able to find clients through there, which is fantastic.
Hmm.
And I'm very happy about that. But for me, the biggest and the most beneficial reward from doing it has been connections. So I've had connections like this where I've gotten on calls with people and
Hmm.
do podcasts or just like discovery calls with some people. Yeah, and that's
Sure.
great. But really, the connections, the connect calls, basically like having a one-on-one coffee chat with someone that sometimes goes for like 2 hours, and then we're just talking about LinkedIn and
Hmm.
building our networks online, and then it changes everything because that person then feels like family from that point forward. So
Yeah.
like when I go
Oh,
to their posts and they
absolutely.
come to my posts, it feels like I know them, even though I've never met them.
Right.
And I think there's real power there. I think I mean, honestly, I think the real power in LinkedIn is that people aren't going there just to be entertained, like say like a Facebook or Instagram or something.
Yeah.
They're going there to learn, they're going there to better themselves,
Hmm.
to find other people to connect with
Hmm.
again. And
Hmm.
then yeah, to hopefully find clients and whatnot. But it's not for it doesn't feel like it's just a means to an end. It feels like, hey, if I find clients on here, that's great and I'm hitting my goals. But that client and that person I'm going to work with is going to be even better for the because they're on LinkedIn, because they're engaging and commenting and saying,
Right.
"Well, hey Jordan, I love what you said on this post," or I found you through this comment or whatever. Like it's amazing the tendrils of connections throughout
Oh,
LinkedIn
yeah.
that you can leave and weave, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much good there to it, but you won't really believe it probably unless you go and do it yourself. Because I probably wouldn't have believed if someone just said, "Hey Jordan, like you should try this." But there is a community there. There's people that are
Yeah.
just amazing, and
Yeah.
I'm super happy to be a part of that community.
Yeah, I love that. So what would your advice? I want to go back to storytelling in a second, but what was since
Sure.
we're talking about connecting, what would be your advice on how to build those connections as someone who, you know, isn't super familiar with LinkedIn or kind of tries to dabble in it?
Yeah.
How would you best what best advice would you give on connecting with people on the platform?
The best way to start is to find people that interest you, that you
Mm-hmm.
like,
Hmm.
that leave that write posts that or send videos or share whatever that interests you. Like that is like a top level. Like that's how you start. If you're coming into LinkedIn completely cold, like go in and find other people that yeah that are interesting, and then when you're doing that, read their posts, comment on them, and then interact and engage with the other people that are on
Yeah.
those posts. Like
Yeah.
basically follow the path from that person.
Mhm.
Like, oh, that XYZ, they left a nice comment. Like, let me go to their profile and see
Yeah.
if they wrote anything. And you could follow that for
Right.
a while, or you can just connect with me or you, and then we can connect you with a cool community. Like that's a
Right.
good way to
I
start too.
know.
And
Yeah.
just find other people and then follow. Basically, I they don't say like follow the tendrils. I just like that thinking about it that way. But you're
Sure.
following the different paths like that instead. You're not using the LinkedIn search bar. I've tried that; it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And you're not just sitting there scrolling through your feed. You're being intentional about
Yeah.
finding those connections through the comments that you are engaged with
Mhm.
that pique your curiosity and spike your interests and that say, oh, this is really interesting. I haven't thought about that, or I want to learn more about hosting a podcast or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can learn more about that and learn and grow and meet and connect with people. And then it's through those connections that you'll find other potential people to work with.
Sure. Sure. I love that advice. The interesting thing in our world, our community, um, we tend to, and this is just my observation when I first started in there, and now looking at it, we tend to focus on connecting with attorneys because our target market are attorneys and
Okay.
other legal nurse consultants. So we
Hmm.
tend to connect with attorneys, but attorneys don't really post on social media.
Yeah.
So having those conversations is a little difficult. And I think that there is this kind of, oh, I reached a dead end, right? And
Yeah.
I, being around this for so long, and that was my experience, but I knew that there wasn't a dead end. And it's just, I continue to dig, continue to dig, continue to dig. And I found this whole community that has nothing to do with legal nurse consulting or attorneys, but the content, the posts that really get to know you, and the comments below have really opened my eyes into, wow, you really don't necessarily even need to find your target market,
Exactly. Yep.
right? Would you agree? I mean, I
Yep.
know that your target is probably not specific as ours would be, but I think that
Hmm.
clearly there's value in maybe diving into a whole different group, a whole different community on there, because you build connections like this. I mean, this is a perfect example
Hmm.
of connecting in the comments. I think I saw your comment under someone's post in that community, and I was like, wow, I love the people in here. And I think it was like a comment about podcasts. And I just, reached out and I was like, hey, and here we are.
Yeah.
And and it wasn't on an attorney's feed, and it wasn't on a legal nurse consultant's feed. And I think that there's this like, there are so many of us legal nurse consultants, and there are
Yeah.
so few attorneys that post, and people are like, well, what's the point, right? I'm just going to keep
Yeah.
posting and post and ghost.
Yeah.
But there's value in really digging and digging into the comments. If you come across a post that you connect with, and you just kind of go down that rabbit hole. That's what I did, and I love every bit of it. I was
Yeah.
so glad that I did it, and being I guess it's like giving permission to not necessarily be in your target market. It kind of opens things up, right? Would you give that same advice to other people, or have you
Yeah,
seen that?
absolutely. So I don't know if you're connected with her. Her name's Ashley Beck Cuellar. She's
No,
part
actually.
of like the ghostwriting, or it's a mixed
Yeah.
community,
Yeah.
but she always talks about like, hey, I just got engaged with this community of ghostwriters, and she's not a ghostwriter. She's in sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's totally a separate crowd, but she
Sure.
is like she's in with us, like
Right.
tighter in the inner circle probably than any of us. You know what I
Sure,
mean? Like
sure, sure,
she's
sure. Yeah.
in that group, and she's like, I mean, similar to your story and saying like, "Hey, I found this group of people. They have really good content. They're very interesting and they're very kind to each other." I mean, that's a big thing for me. Kind to each other in the
Absolutely.
comments, like,
Yep.
and supportive and helpful. And yet, she is very good with that. And just said, "Hey, I like this group of people." She said, "I never expected to be like with a group of ghostwriters," but I always think of her when because other people have asked that same question of like, who am I connecting with? And that's why
Mhm.
I say as simple as like people you like and find interesting, because
Mhm.
you're going to open yourself up to a brand new community with that because they're out there.
Right. Right.
There's some
And
amazing people on the platform for sure.
there really is. I think it also, if you think of it as, it just hit me. I was a part of this networking group, right? Where you show
Hmm.
up and you're only, the only one in your profession. And then there are all these other professions. You've got
Hmm.
the roofer, the plumber, the personal injury attorney, you've got this cast of characters, and your whole focus is to network with those people that are not necessarily your target market, because they know people that are, and it's like
Yeah, yeah,
you want to lift them up, and refer your friend who needs a plumber, but also they're there to lift you up, and because they know people and I know people. And so I think that that part of it is something that also takes into play, because if you are, we can take the ghostwriting community, or we can take another community that I'm sure
hmm,
is building an amazing world, and you can take that community, and everybody knows someone, right? And especially in these communities, everybody knows someone who knows someone who knows someone. Just like you just gave a name that I didn't know,
yeah,
and it's just because we're having this conversation. So the connections can be completely outside of your community, because everybody knows someone, and they're just as valuable as, diving in what you think should be your, your comments, your connections on these target market posts. So I know I kind of got sidetracked a little bit,
No,
but
but that's a
really,
community, right? When you think about it,
yeah,
like a community is like a set of different individuals with different skills and strengths that they can help build
exactly.
each other up. Like people come in that are in sales or are in completely different fields and comment on our posts. It's great because then we learn something new. Say, hey, I
Right.
shared something today that was a sales perspective on my post. It said like, hey, I'm not a sales expert, but here's what I've noticed and
Mhm.
in doing this freelancing stuff for 10 years. And then when people come in and say like sales perspective, like that's right, but did you think about this? To me, that's great. Like I want that. I want that type
Yeah.
of diversity in comments too. It's like, yeah, to me,
Yeah.
that's where it's
Everybody
good.
wins.
You don't want all the same people doing all the same stuff. But yeah,
Right. Right. Gets a little boring. Gets
yeah,
a little
exactly.
boring. Yeah, exactly. Just like you're in the backyard barbecue. I always say use that term. I used to use the campfire, sitting around a campfire. You don't want boring. You want
Yeah.
conversations. And it doesn't really matter who the conversation is with, but it's with the people that you find kind and interesting and have
Hmm.
an interesting perspective. And that's you gravitate towards that. It doesn't matter what their title is. But like you said, you learn things from other people. That's how we grow. Okay. So connecting obviously is amazing on LinkedIn. We're proof of that. And when it comes to storytelling or really just kind of getting you said you've been posting every day and you do, and
Hmm.
I look forward to your posts every day. Like, oh
Thank
great.
you.
Because there is something to say about someone that posts every day. You're like, ooh, I can't wait till they post,
Yeah.
not many people post every day. First of all, that's unique, but you look forward to their posts.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to being brave and posting every day or just, 3 times a week, we've all been kind of told because it is a platform for professionals or whatever, jobs, that um our best way to post, the most successful way to post is to share your expertise, right? To share your
Yeah.
knowledge so that, your person over here that's looking for what you offer sees it and says, "Oh, that's helpful. I'm going to hire you." Um, what I found in the ghostwriter space is that there's a way to share a story without it being the top 10 tips for, X, Y,
Yeah.
and Z. What kind of advice would you give someone who has been told that, the best way to success is to give those, top 10 tips. But if you don't necessarily connect with it or you don't want to, it doesn't feel right to you, and maybe storytelling does feel right to you. What advice would you give someone on how to put yourself out there and be okay with it and feel like you're doing it
Yeah.
the right way?
I think so. I have a couple thoughts with that. Just with what you
Okay.
said at the end, like you may not for a while feel like super comfortable with it, especially if you're just starting to post. And like if this is your first posting on anywhere online, it's going to be uncomfortable. Um, but you get less uncomfortable by doing it. And I think the best thing you can do, I say like the best advice is just to be yourself, share your story, but then keep it simple when you're
Mhm.
sharing and really try to stick to like one idea. If you're going to write a post, you're going to do a video, you know, you could, some people do like that. Yeah. That here's 10 things you could do. I
Yeah.
think, and I've done those posts before and that they work, but they're not as like bite sized and
Mhm.
they're for the people that are like you that are looking forward to that post every day and are going to read it and here's some more meat,
Right.
but that post is not generally going to be the most successful in terms of like starting out. Like the best thing you do when you're starting out is just be simple and share one thing, like share a story about if you even just think of the top 5 things that you would share with someone who is coming into your field for the first time, so your specific field, say if someone was brand new to this area, what would they know? And what would they need to know? And there you go, right there. Like there's 5 different posts that you could do easily. Like that could be the start of your week,
Yeah.
and just start talking about it. And you, it, some people like, yeah, they get nervous. Like, yeah, again, like I'm not an expert in this. Like
Yeah.
I don't have that much experience, but like you could be doing something for 6 months and have something to say about it, I think.
Mhm.
Um, Even just to share, like I've been in this for 6 months and a year. Here are some things I never expected. Like there's so many
Mhm.
different things
Yeah.
within basically no matter where you are that you could share with people and that people would find beneficial because there are other people in your same shoes. If you're only been doing something for 6 months, there are other people that are just starting out too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And there's value in those connections, or connecting with people that can relate to your story or what you have to share.
mhm,
There's a an underlying, and I know that this is the same thing because I've heard other podcasts and posts about attorneys sharing on social media, and this is probably one of the reasons why we don't see a whole lot of attorneys
mhm,
sharing, and really kind of the same rules apply for us. In the hesitation on sharing is that we feel like maybe we're going to say the wrong things, right?
mhm,
Maybe it's going to be used in the future against us. Our writing, I say I'm a bad writer, but yet my business is me writing reports for attorneys as a nurse.
mhm,
So if I'm a bad writer, will the attorneys think that I'm a bad writer on their reports? Because that is taught, that make sure that obviously you put your writing out there so that they can see you're articulate,
mhm.
you can write. So I think that there's this big fear of like saying the wrong thing. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, how do
Yeah.
you avoid saying the wrong thing where someone is going to look at that and either say, oh, they can't write because it's not grammatically correct, or using it against you later when you're involved in a legal, I'll to just say, expert work, that you've got this stuff on social media that can be talked about in the future. And
Yeah.
people are afraid, if I share my story, if I share those things, then is that wrong? So what would you say about that?
It's such a great question because it's such a valid fear. I mean, I have the same fear. I think everyone does. That like
Mm,
if I say something about like for example, I've had this fear a lot. I want to share my story. I want to talk about my past books and I want to talk about my mistakes. How
mhm,
do I present this in a way that someone doesn't come to my post and think, I don't really want to go with him as a ghostwriter if he like failed in this way. Like, I
mhm,
don't really want that. But like,
mhm.
I think that's in my head of like what I'm
Totally.
thinking that they're going to think. Where usually they think, wow, I really appreciate that he was honest about this. And like, wow, here are his methods to like not have make that same mistake or like to do it better next time. And I just try to be as real and as humble as I can when I'm posting because I think that's what people appreciate. Like the more I can be that, the better.
Yeah.
And yeah, someone is going to see it's going to happen. Like someone's going to see
Yeah.
one of those posts and think in their head, and I'm never going to know. They're going to think, I don't want to work with Jordan because I want to work with like only the best. I want to work with like someone that's perfect. Or maybe they're not really thinking that,
Sure.
but they're thinking that,
Yeah.
which is unrealistic anyway, because no one can promise any kind of results.
Right, right, right.
But yeah, but if those type of people don't want to work with me, like I am okay with that. I want to work with the people that say, wow, I appreciate that he's being open and vulnerable and and then even again like I want that in my writing in the book. I want to come across like that. I want people to have like that feeling. um that's going to do better for me and for the right people than like shying away from sharing that. So
Yeah. So don't be shy in sharing that. And you're not everybody's cup of tea. I mean, that's really
yeah,
what it comes down to, right? You're just not going to, I think what we tend to fear is that we want to be hireable by everyone. And that's
yeah,
not realistic. It's just not. And I think we forget that. And that's part of why we fear even putting ourselves out there, because what if the one person that, you think is going to hire you is not going to hire you, and you
Yeah.
think it's all because of the post, they were going to hire you anyways, right? So you're
Yep.
basically giving everyone permission to just be like, you know what? The right people are going to find you if you share.
Yeah, I just think it's a similar fear with authors that don't want to put their book out there or give it away for free, and they think, oh, someone's going to steal this, or like someone's going to think
Mm,
bad about this or take my ideas, and it's just it's an invalid fear, honestly, because no one's going to do that. Like, people
right.
don't have time for that, and if they do, yeah, okay, it does happen. Like, the ideas get stolen, like
Sure.
whatever. Like,
Yeah.
but you can't really control that. Like,
No, it's going to
you
happen.
can't control that by being like, "Oh, I'm not gonna put myself out there at all."
Yeah.
You're only gonna make it so, yeah, that never happens. You're right. That's never gonna happen, but you're also never gonna find to get positive results either.
Right.
It's
Right.
always gonna be a risk.
Right. I love that. Okay. So I appreciate all of this, your perspective on this, because these are all questions that, either I've had, or
Yep.
people have asked me, or if I have the question, that means, 15 other people have the same question. So I appreciate you answering those. I know that we talked about that you have a book coming up as well. And I wanted you to share a little bit about that book, and obviously when it comes out. But I want more of like what the book is all about, and why you wrote it.
Sure. So the book is called Nonfiction Alchemy, and it's coming out in sometime in the fall of 2024. I don't have an exact date yet.
Yep.
But it's a book about writing a book. And I basically talk about my entire experience and my story and background of writing that first book, kind of like we just talked about before, jumping into book marketing, doing that for a living for a while as a freelancer.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, coming to the point where, okay, I have a process for writing a nonfiction book. And this is what it is. And all of the like grit and like what's the right word? Like, the process in terms of like checklists and the structure of everything you need to do that. Like, I have all of that. And I have like a lot of the thought processes and roadblocks you're going to hit along the
Hmm.
way, because I've done this so many times. So
Right.
as I said, I've done the ghostwriting for people for the past 3 years, did book marketing before that. But this book that I'm writing is going to be my eighth book under my name.
Wow.
So there's experience there, but there's also this sense of I'm still a real normal guy. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not a New York Times bestseller. Like, I write books for a different reason than some people write books.
Yeah.
And if you match
Right.
me, if you match my reason, if you want to tell your story, if you want to have like a powerful, business card, basically, that's what a book can be. If you want to do
Mhm.
speaking engagements, you want to really like upgrade your brand.
Mhm.
That's how I can help, and that's how this book
Mhm.
will help too, because this
Mhm.
book will help you make that book. Um,
Mm.
it's going to
Yeah.
be like, my whole purpose is getting a book that you, the author, are very proud of, and you have it on your desk, and you say, "Hey, I want to give that book to anyone I meet that might say." So
Yep.
my plan is to keep this book
Yeah.
in my bag and give it away to as many people as
Right.
possible.
Right.
But yeah, I was most excited to do this book because it's kind of a little meta, but it's evidencing the fact that like having a business book can work. So like,
Yeah.
I am upgrading and sharing about my business as a ghostwriter by giving people this book about writing a book. But it could be
Right.
about anything. It could be about podcasting. It could be about
Right.
anything that you are interested in. That book can be about that you also do something on the back end,
Right.
such as coaching or taking on clients for whatever it is. Just sharing your
Mhm.
story, sharing about you.
Yeah.
And I tried to do that with this book too. I tried to give some stories in there that I haven't told anywhere else that I think people will
Yeah.
find interesting, fascinating.
Yeah.
We'll see what people think about
Yeah.
it, but I
Yeah.
enjoyed writing it. So
It's like a roadmap with your personality and your
yeah,
stories on, how success. I love that. I will be reading that book. That's for
thank
sure.
you.
No, I can't wait. Okay, so you've shared all that you've written all their books. Where can the audience, my community, and your community find your books?
Well, I would say first off, best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn because I'm there
Yeah.
every day.
Yep.
You can also go to my website, which is jmring.com. So just kind of just my initials, JM as in Matthew, jmring.com. And that'll take you to all my books and all the stuff that I can do from there. But yeah, either there or LinkedIn is completely fine.
Yeah.
Just check in, get to know me, have a conversation. That's my favorite. So
Yeah, I was going to say, definitely connect with Jordan on LinkedIn and just really enjoy his content and really be a part of his community, because he is very welcoming. He is very genuine and he is very personable. And clearly, this conversation has been all of that. So you are who you say you are on social. And I appreciate you sharing your insights, your story. I would love to go visit Lisbon again one day, and maybe you'll still be there. And I look forward to staying connected and sharing with people your book and your story. So thank you very much for all of your time.
thank you. I love talking about this stuff. So for me, it's fun. So happy to do it.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thank you for joining us in this fun conversation on the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting podcast. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and empowering as I always do. And I hope that you share this episode with your friends. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could leave us a review or comment, as I would love to share them in the future episodes. Or hop on over into my DMs and send me a quick message. I can be found on Instagram at anna.b.gray, on my website at limitlesslnc.com, and over on LinkedIn at anna.gray. And I want you to remember, you are limitless. Until next time.